Grasslands National Park is a destination which visitors from around the world are drawn to each year for its peace and solitude on the open prairie. Its living sky extends into the horizon and is far away from the big city. It transports you back in time. Where others before you stood on the same land, looking out at the sunrise. Spanning over 700 square kilometers, the park is located near Val Marie in southwest Saskatchewan and is one of the largest areas of undisturbed mixed prairie grassland in Canada. The park is divided into the west and east blocks, offering visitors a prairie Serengeti experience. From the breathtaking vistas of rolling hills to the rugged Badlands, which includes one of the few landscapes in Saskatchewan untouched by the glaciers, to the wildlife, prairie grass and flora which adorn the landscape. Grasslands National Park is an area steeped in history, covering thousands of years.
There's a very good chance this is one animal, and that this is kind of the back half, and over there is the front half.
Before Canada was formed, before the march west of the Northwest Mounted Police, and before the signing of the numbered treaties, this was a land inhabited by the Gros Ventre, the Assiniboine, the Blackfoot, and the Cree. Each had linked their lives to the migration of bison. Bison were central to their lives, providing their main means of sustenance and shaping their spiritual beliefs. Scholars have estimated that in 1800, the bison population in North America was over 50 million. As incredible as they were in numbers, so was their decimation. By the late 1880s, the bison bordered on the edge of extinction, a consequence of European settlement, westward expansion, and massive overhunting. One of the last known bison hunts took place southwest of Val Marie in 1883, with over 450 bison killed by 10 riders and 50 men on foot. Ecologically and culturally, the plains were transformed. Ancient teepee rings, medicine wheels, and bison driving lanes are the footprint left by the indigenous people. Coinciding with the changing landscape of the open prairie was the arrival of early settlers from Europe and parts of the U.S. Many set up homesteads and raised families while enduring the challenges of this new and barren frontier.
There was the Niedringhaus brothers who came over from Germany and had investments and developed manufacturing in Chicago. And I don't know why they started ranching. I guess they started ranching because the profit was about 700 or 800%. You could buy a calf on the range for $5 and sell it in Chicago for $45. So the N-Bar-N was one of the very first. And they had lands both over here on the Frenchman River and in the East Block along Rock Creek.
And so as the years passed, those that had settled in the area with intentions of farming soon realized the land was not suitable for this purpose. And with the additional challenges of a harsh winter and growing proper feed for their livestock, many decided to move on.
It wasn't until those corporate ranches sort of folded, largely because of the winter of 1906-07, when they had enormous losses of cattle on the range. They just died. There are many descriptions of those events happening. And after that, the ranchers were never as large again. They just had to adjust to the circumstances and to the reality that cattle had to be fed in the winter.
For those families who remained in the area, ranching became the main focus of their livelihood, with their many herds of cattle grazing the prairie grassland. Old abandoned corrals and other remnants of early ranching homesteads now dot the landscape to remind us of the end of the Wild West and the transition to settlement. Ranching and homesteading history stretches across Grasslands National Park. It's a history characterized by a genuine love of the land and the native grass species, which the many ranchers nurtured over the years. Stewardship of the land, which has been accomplished through active cattle grazing and still used to this day. A respect for this natural habitat and its beauty, which assisted in building a case for the creation of a national park. It was the Saskatchewan Natural History Society, now Nature's Saskatchewan, that first formally proposed a national park here in 1956. More individuals and organizations lobbied for a prairie park, and a 1965 study agreed that the Val-Marie-Killdeer region was an excellent example of the rapidly disappearing native grasslands in Canada, a process which was long and seemed daunting at times.
It was 1971, and they called a meeting of ranchers because Jean Chrétien was going to come and talk to them about what a park would mean. Already, different people in the Natural History Society and other groups too had sort of singled out the Killdeer and Val-Marie area as being a good area for a park, partly because there was so much natural vegetation and very little of the land had been changed for millennia, and partly maybe because it was very lowly populated. And at first then, this caused concern because ranchers started to wonder, was the land just going to be confiscated?
In 1975, the provincial and federal governments agreed to create a national park in southwestern Saskatchewan, which led to extensive public hearings in 1976 and a signed agreement on June 19, 1981. The first land was acquired in 1984 from the family of local rancher Walt Larson, an acquisition which built momentum for others to follow in the years to come.
The importance of the Larson land to the park was that it was such a huge parcel of land. It had a big impact. I think there were 198 quarters of land turned over altogether. Not all of those maybe remain in the park today because some of them might be outside the established boundaries. You know, in many places, that could be a park almost in itself.
The project soon faced obstacles over jurisdictional control regarding water and mineral resources, and any additional acquisition of land temporarily stopped. Over the next 5 years, federal and provincial officials renegotiated these issues. A coalition of national and regional non-government conservation organizations helped both governments to reach mutually acceptable solutions, particularly on the management of water resources. A new Grasslands National Park agreement was signed on September 23, 1988, and replaced both the park agreement and the oil and gas agreement of June 19, 1981. With the new agreement in place, and one which is still used as a foundation for the park to this day, Parks Canada continued to purchase intact grasslands from private ranchers. To officially mark the opening of the park, sod was turned for a visitor reception center and administration building on March 31, 1989. Followed by a ribbon-cutting ceremony on September 15th of that year, welcoming special guests and other dignitaries to the newly constructed building. Over the years, the park's focus has not only been to pay homage to the land, but also to the preservation of various species at risk, helping grasslands to stand out from other national parks by not only protecting various wildlife, but also the native grass in the area.
It's a unique national park just in what we're protecting. This is the only solely prairie park. We're also unique in the way that we have so many endangered species.
Following the park's strategy of protecting endangered species was the reintroduction of the plains bison in December 2005. 71 bison were part of a herd returned to the landscape their ancestors once roamed. A move which benefited the park in several areas, starting with the restoration of a grazing strategy.
It was to manage the grass. When Parks Canada purchased private land, the place had been grazed for years and years, and I think that's maybe where we made our first mistake as Parks Canada, is there was no grazing, and I think it took about 20 years before we realized that the grass wasn't in a great state. And you could look over the fence at the neighboring rancher and you could see, you know, the biodiversity was much healthier over there.
The return of the bison also emphasized their symbolic stature to the prairies as an important part of North American history. A homecoming for the bison which has attracted more visitors to the park.
Hard to imagine the park without them now. And it has been amazing for visitors as well, even locals. Once the bison were in there, it just seemed like the park had more purpose.
The bison are just one of over 20 species at risk which the park staff monitor.
That's amazing. I see the, it looks like it's really hot out there.
Visitors can often view these species while a delicate balance between conservation and the visitor experience is maintained. Over the years, the visitor experience has expanded from one of a passive nature to one where visitors of all ages can be more involved in a range of programs while experiencing the many wonders of the landscape. Grasslands National Park also offers unique experiences for naturalists through its open prairie with various species of native grass, flora, wildlife and birds unique to the area. Experiences which can be enjoyed through the view of your camera lens, paddling down the Frenchman River, on a scenic hike or leisurely stroll, or through an invigorating backcountry experience. To further entice visitors, the park established the Eco-Tour Scenic Driving Experience in 1990, stretching 30 kilometers through the Frenchman River Valley. The rural municipal road, originally built for farmers and ranchers, later became key for park operations. The Eco-Tour Road offers visitors access to the scenic Frenchman River Valley, which cascades into a prairie landscape home to various wildlife and flora which are unique to the area. In 2010, the park expanded this program by installing interpretive panels, viewing scopes and benches, and a complimentary interpretive eco-tour booklet as a way to get visitors out of their car and experience nature firsthand. Another interpretive experience in the West Block is 70 Mile Butte. As one of the most breathtaking views, visitors can follow the trail up to the summit. A majestic plateau where many choose to pull out their camera for a memorable snapshot of their prairie adventure.
The name 70 Mile Butte came from the Northwest Mounted Police, so it is 70 miles to Wood Mountain on one side and 70 miles to East End Post on the other side on the way to Fort Walsh.
Meanwhile, in the East Block, there are also many iconic sites to explore. This includes the $1 Million View, known for its breathtaking vista, which spotlights a rugged landscape untouched for thousands of years, while overlooking the Valley of 1,000 Devils.
It's this badland environment, hoodoos and adobe hills. It's amazing. It's like, can almost imagine, dinosaurs in that kind of world.
And as the sun sets, a new landscape emerges in the park. In the stillness of the night, the dark sky comes to life. Located away from the bright lights of neighboring communities, Grasslands National Park is one of the darkest skies in the country, offering a breathtaking view of the Milky Way.
So there's 3 events that we do, and it's called Beyond the Big Dipper. So in the East Block kicks it off, right in May. They have the first astronomy event, and then here in the West Block we just had one in July, and we'll have another one in August. And we work with the Royal Astronomical Society to see what dates work for them. We have international visitors, and it's amazing. Not something every person would see, so it is definitely a special feature for us.
Got my brochure of the Grasslands Park.
The camping experience has also developed in stages, beginning in the East Block. A few years after the purchase of the McGowan Ranch lands in 1990, Grasslands National Park used the McGowan House as a research station, and the yard was used as a makeshift campground. Then in 2009, the McGowan House was retrofitted into a visitor center with park staff on site. And that was the first time Grasslands National Park stationed visitor services staff there. Further visitor infrastructure planning and development began, and in 2015, funds were approved to build the Rock Creek Campground and the Badlands Scenic Drive. And visitors to the West Block also have the opportunity to be one with nature, with the choice of bringing in their own tent or trailer, or sleeping in an authentic at the Frenchman Valley Campground.
The campground was built in 2012, and there's 24 sites out there. So the campground is right in the heart of the Frenchman River Valley of the West Block. This just actually opened the doors so that visitors could have a place to stay so they can be immersed right in that grasslands experience.
Sometimes badgers and coyotes are seen, it looks like they're working together on a prairie dog colony.
Interpretive programs and other family-oriented events have developed over the years to further expand the visitor experience. The Grasslander Classic each July in the West Block is a family-friendly event which includes wagon rides of the picturesque landscape and tours of the Larson homestead. And various other activities including archery and kayaking through the Frenchman River. Visitors to the park can experience the vast difference in the landscape between the West Block and its gentler coulees and rolling hills to the rugged badlands of the East Block during fossil fever in August. The multicolored hues represent 60,000 years of geological history and offers visitors the chance to uncover secrets of the past while meeting paleontologists from the Royal Saskatchewan Museum and McGill University. An area which is noted as one of the richest resources of fossils in Canada, with 52 dinosaur species discovered over the years, highlighted by the KPG boundary, a thin white line that marks the end of the dinosaur era, which can often be seen by visitors.
So the KPG boundary is the physical extinction layer of the boundary. It's the only mass extinction in the world where you can actually put your finger on the point in geologic time where it happened. So the K stands for Cretaceous, which does start with a C, but the K is a symbolic for Cretaceous. And the PG is for Paleogene, which represents the time period after the dinosaurs. So this layer, this boundary that you can actually physically see in the rock, is the layer between these two groups of rocks, and it represents the end Cretaceous mass extinction. What the layer actually is the fallout from the bolide impact, the meteor impact, that was a contributing factor to the dinosaur mass extinction. Where we're standing right here is right on the US border. So the latitude at this point is about 49.04 degrees north. So about kind of 100 years ago, 1874, there was a geologist by the name of George Mercer Dawson, and he was coming down this tributary to the Frenchman River Valley, mapping the 49th parallel, and he and his team came across a big bone. So this intrigued them. They collected it and they sent it back to Ottawa, and it turned out it was a dinosaur. It was the very first dinosaur ever collected in Canada, and it was collected right here in Grasslands National Park. It's hard to tell. This is not a normal.
Partnerships, such as the one with the Royal Saskatchewan Museum for fossil fever, play an integral role in the future of Grasslands National Park, as do the ongoing partnerships with other key stakeholders, which includes outfitters and tourism operators working to enhance the visitor experience. While working alongside the ranchers and numerous conservation groups for the preservation of the land and various species at risk.
The resource conservation has many partners as well. They work with universities on doing numerous research studies. They also work with the Calgary Zoo, which is a conservation agency as well. One of their main things right now is focusing on the prairie dog population and ensuring that that's in good health. In the last few years in the West Block, we purchased about 100 square miles of land within a very short amount of time. To manage that kind of scale of land, you need help to do that. The park has what we call licenses or cattle grazing permits, where we go through a public process and people bid on that, and whoever is the successful proponent either lives out there or manages those lands, and they're grazing the grass and keeping it in good health. In turn, we're able to manage huge tracts of land, and it's a win-win, really.
Yeah, well, and in my vehicle, I talked, I was like,
Now employing approximately 60 staff through the West and East Block. Each work in various departments from administration, ecology, to park wardens, while working as a team to balance the conservation and tourism mandate of the park. Ensuring this prairie ecosystem and its history is preserved for generations to come, as it rivals the most exotic locations in the world, leaving each visitor with their own unique experience of the open prairie. The vast landscape commands your attention, while the immense sky overwhelms the first-time visitor with wonder and contemplation of this connection to the land. Your eyes see a land untouched by time, and perhaps in doing so, provides a greater appreciation for life itself.